We're excited to have Alexander Walters with us today to tell us and teach us and share with us about storytelling and his experience. I've been going back and forth with Alex in preparation for today's meeting. He's also done some collaboration with Summit Venture Studio. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to you, Alex.
Great. Thank you, Spencer, and thanks to the Midday Connect team for having me. I'm going to see if I could hijack the presentation. So I appreciate the really generous and really, I guess the right way to say it is the really great headline that was written to announce my talk today. Um, I'm taking a slightly different route. It's related, but I think that at the end of the day, I'm here to share with you a little bit about storytelling. And if we have time, I would like to talk about a new film that my partner and I are releasing in a month and a half. So I'm Alex Walters. Nice to see everyone. I believe, and my firm, Patina Ventures, believes that there's a story to tell. I like to help companies, individuals, entrepreneurs find their story and figure out the best way to share that. Um, I am going to talk a little bit about storytelling, but I think it's hard to say you're an expert in storytelling unless you're winning Emmys or Oscars, um, which I have not, but maybe one day. So I don't think I'm necessarily an expert, and I'm not trying to approach this humbly. Um, but I do have 13 years of advertising and strategy experience. I've played every strategy role within an ad agency, and all of it has been focused on pharma, health, and wellness. And so before I get started, um, just maybe by like a show of hands or an emoji, um, how many people like feel really strongly about their storytelling skills and their current story professionally for their business or the product you're working on or anything like that? Any hands I can see here? Hands up if you feel strong. Okay, great. Thank you. Cool. So I think all of you like uh that raised your hand or engaged. Sorry, I did not see everyone, but we're reacting to the word story, and I think you see the value of story. Let's ground in what I mean when I say story. So there's the act of storytelling, which is conveying a story, but a story is anything that can be told uh, that can be visualized or that can be written that is shared and it has a bit of value on it. So it could be a story around the campfire. It could be in a presentation like this one. It could be within an advertising campaign, within a pitch deck, within a documentary film. It can be told over Zoom with new friends. So when I say story, I speak about a spoken, visualized, or written piece of value that is shared with another person or group of people. Stories are an incredible tool for connecting with people and for conveying information. There's real hard scientific evidence that stories are actually proven to connect folks. There's a researcher in Princeton, at Princeton, his name is Dr. Greg Stevens. He ran this study where he connected storytellers and those listening to a story to an MRI machine and took scans of the brain while they were either telling a story or listening to a story. And what they saw is that under the MRI, areas of the brain lit up, whether the same areas of the brain lit up when someone was telling a story as the areas did when they were listening to a story. So there was, clinical proof, scientific research proof that showed that stories connect audiences. This phenomenon is called neural coupling. And it happens when two people or a person in a group of people are really engaged in a thoughtful story. Stories have many elements, but I think arguably one of the most important aspects of a story is its start. A strong hook can help really create that connection and get someone engaged from the beginning of your story. Why is this important? I'm sure all of you know this, that everyone's attention spans seem to be getting shorter and shorter every day. They're shorter than ever before. Not only are we incredibly busy, but there are millions and millions of channels and other people, other organizations that are competing for our attention. So if you cannot capture someone's attention at the start of a story, they're not going to sustain or be around for the rest to hear your whole story or your main message. I use strong hooks, and this is the one of the quick takeaways I'd like to share with you also. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you're welcome to. But strong hooks are really important to connect your audiences from the start of your story. Now, these aren't the only ways to do this, but these are five of my favorite hooks to use when I'm thinking about a story. If I'm writing a presentation or if I'm engaging with a group in a talk, it's important at the start of your story to build a relationship, right? To get someone to want to hear the rest of your story. And that's why creating relatability is a super helpful tool. Relatability gives someone context and it creates comfort. You can ask a question like I did at the start of our presentation that helps create a human connection. Um, it's about giving someone context and giving them comfort. Again, generating intrigue. You can get your audience to want to know what's going to happen next. You can use action to get your audience to want to know what's going on and what's going to happen next. Or you can use an interesting fact. So you can share like a piece of information that gets your audience to bite. There are a handful of tools out there that you could use, and you could probably come up with something that works for you. But these are five tools that I use at the start of a story to help connect your audience from the start. So once you have someone connected, it's important to consider how you keep audiences engaged. Um, One of the tools that I like to use is this idea of tension. Um, Tension keeps audiences guessing. Just when things seem resolved within a story, the tension can change the direction of that story. For example, when the hero takes a giant leap forward only to meet a new obstacle and take two steps back. So, tension comes from leaning into the problem and the challenge and then traversing towards a solution and a better outcome. And it's this back and forth, this, this, these highs and these lows that are able to keep someone engaged because you're going to keep your audiences guessing about what's going to happen next. The tool that I like to use for this is a framework called The World as It Is and The World as It Should Be. This is something that, again, take a screenshot, really, really great to use. And I'll show you a little bit how you can use it in a moment. But the world as it is allows us to focus on the problem, the challenge that's right in front of us. So this could be like a competitor in the context of healthcare. This could be a disease state and the unmet needs that exist with the target audience. And then there's the world as it should be, which is about like a solution, an opportunity. So I'm just going to minimize this. Your product or your medicine, and so it's like how the world as it should be resolves from the world as it is. I'm going to share one more tip, and then I'm going to transition for the last part of the presentation. The power of an image. So this is a tip that I would say is really, really valuable. So for some of my clients that I consult for, this is one of the hardest things. I've seen slide decks, presentations that are loaded with data, with numbers, with tables, with charts. And the problem with those is those facts and figures, though logical, they can fall short because facts and figures do not trigger emotions. You might get frustrated, which is an emotion from looking at all the facts and figures and numbers. But the power of an image is that it triggers emotions. And when emotions are triggered, they flood the brain. And when those emotions flood the brain, your brain hits the save button and you create memories. So images trigger emotions. I'm going to show you an example that's probably hyper relevant to those in the Salt Lake City area. More than 9,800 Utahns became homeless for the first time last year, marking a nearly 10% increase from 2022. So this was a news headline from 2024 that I took out of the article and I just put on this page. And it has some really big figures, 9,800 and 10% increase over a couple of years. Now imagine this headline in this context. More than 9,800 Utahns became homeless for the first time last year, marking a nearly 10% increase from 2022. So what I've tried to establish here is a relevant image from the Salt Lake City area that highlights what the headline is trying to communicate. And so, with the facts and figures, this image provides more context. This visual context may inspire me to feel a particular way, maybe angry, maybe disappointed, maybe saddened. But all these are going to increase my memory with regards to that fact, which was communicated. So, three tips that I just shared with you, just to recap: strong hooks to start your story to help build a connection, lean into tension and the world as it is and the world as it should be to keep people engaged. And finally, help people remember your stories by not relying on facts and logic alone, but knowing that imagery, video, um, they are more powerful than facts and logic alone at communicating effectively to your target audience. I'm going to show a quick film that is an example of, I believe it has a strong hook, I believe it has tension, and I believe it leaves a memory that you'll find hard to shake in that it has a resolution that is highly emotional.
Quero fazer pipi en la piscina. Papi, ya. Ya. Ah, pero papá, dame tu fósforo. No, déjame el piso. Ay.
Están buscando los caballos por ahí.
Jewelry makes everything. Conmigo un ratito. ¡Ah!
Mi amor, ¿me das una manzana, por favor? Mi amor, ¿por qué hiciste eso?
Porque te la lavera por manzana.
That film was written and directed by one of my partners, John Heffelfinger, J.R. Heffelfinger. It does a great job of pulling through a lot of the examples I just shared. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm going to switch gears. I think I'm doing okay on time. I believe I have about 13 minutes left. So I'm going to kind of no, I don't have that much time left. I have a few minutes left. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. Again, show of hands, can anyone relate to the following? Working in an industry or at a job long enough to realize there's a better way to produce or create, analyze, or operate? Pause for a quick while I see if there's any hands. Anyone relate to this? Thumbs up. There's a heart. Okay, cool. It's been my experience, and I think that's what led me to realize that there could be a better way to tell stories. I've been working in advertising, like I said, for years, and while everyone says they want to be customer centric or patient centric for the healthcare within the healthcare space, 9 times out of 10, the work, the stories always trends towards brand centric. And I get it, right? Brands have to sell brands have to sell product. They're focused on sales and engagement. But ultimately, like their customers or their end users of their product are left wanting more. And that's because we're human and we are emotional. And even if a story speaks to our minds, our hearts are often left wanting more. The emotion is stripped from a lot of the stories that we engage with. So you see a lot of companies, big companies, spending millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to appeal to logic. when they're missing that opportunity to appeal to someone's emotions. We are emotional beings. We make decisions with emotions. And logic is important, but it has to have a level of emotion to stick. I created Patina Ventures to explore how I could help people tell better stories. One of the one of the ways that I believe we could do that is designing for the heart. Designing for the heart requires an authentic representation of your customers. This includes being able to proactively channel their voice, their emotions, their attitudes, to build into your story their needs, their challenges, the successes, realities, the setbacks. Lean into all of that, the tension, that real authentic nature that you're trying that it's of the subjects that you're putting in your stories to help authentically represent them, but also to create content that will more deeply engage than that which is just full of logic. So the insight that I had with Patina was, despite a healthcare-wide shift towards customer centricity, customer-centric healthcare stories still feel overly brand-centric. World as it is, world as it could be. Today, healthcare stories celebrate the brand as hero. On the left is an example of a patient story, which is scripted, styled, and it's funny. I don't know too many people who speak like this, but she speaks in brand messages. But what if tomorrow healthcare stories made the customer the hero?
Let's just say that I had been in the ocean for the last 50 years, swimming against the tide. Everything I tried to do was exponentially more difficult. Just the daily things.
So that's a clip, a teaser for my upcoming film, Still Honeyman. It's unscripted and it's authentic, and that's just from an interview with our subject, Mark, who we're showing in context. So you're getting the logic and the facts paired against his images. So my film partner, Hef, who couldn't make it today, and I started Sincerely Yours to create stories that feature real people and authentically represent our subjects. So we develop narratives that offer intimate portraits of real life. Our first story is Still Honeyman. Here's the trailer.
The primary emotion or thought that I'm carrying into this surgery is gratitude. Gratitude that the surgery exists, gratitude that I'm in the hands of a surgeon who's gifted and has done hundreds of them, and gratitude that I have already lived a life for which I am profoundly grateful. I have a wife of 31 years who has been my rock. I've got former students and friends, all of whom are just fighting to send me as much positive energy and healing thoughts and prayers to try to kind of harness the universe to get me in the best possible place to have the best possible outcomes. So I truly believe that as they wheel me into that room, it's not going to be terror. It's going to be gratitude.
Mark Honeyman has been living with essential tremor for 45 years. He's a award-winning, acclaimed teacher in Southern Michigan. He has tried every pharmaceutical agent available, and the only other option left for him was a risky surgery called it's an open brain surgery to install electrical control devices, a DBS system within his brain. This story speaks about his journey and making that choice, how he manages that risk and walks through his experience with that surgery. It premieres April 11th through 25th. I'd love if you could check out and sign up for the premiere, and I'd love to share the full movie with you at a later date. Hopefully you found this 15-minute presentation helpful. Very nice to be here, and any questions and answers, I'm happy to entertain them.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, if you've got a question, you can just come off mute or you can put it in the chat. Maybe I'll kick it off real quick. I'm just wondering, Alex, for this audience comprising some founders, how can we, in the early stages, be better storytellers today as part of our startup journey? I know you've given a few tips, but are there
Yeah.
ways, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's two things that I would do. I think it's first understand what you're trying to do and how you plan to change the world. I think that will help you discover the world as it is, which is causing you to pursue your entrepreneurial endeavors, and the world as it could be or should be, which is the world you're trying to create with your startup. So make sure that like you have a clear list of those challenges you're trying to resolve and can clearly articulate how what you're doing is going to resolve those challenges. Number two, I would say spend a lot of time with your customers. Even when we worked together, Spencer, through some adventure studios, I think I spoke to over 100 folks, just trying to really understand the context and their pain points and their challenges. And I think the more you speak to your customers, the more you can create a story that is specifically targeted to who you're trying to reach with your product or your service.
Thanks, Alex. Other questions for the expert? Joel says, if you see that there, you mentioned your upcoming movie is unscripted. How do you determine to use scripted storytelling versus unscripted?
Great question. I think a good example of a scripted storytelling is like this presentation that I just did. Um, I think that there's a level of planning that was required for me to share this presentation, and I think like it would be irresponsible. It would have been irresponsible of me to kind of like unscript this and shoot from the hip. I think unscripted documentary storytelling is the most impactful way to move an audience. I think the reason unscripted works so well in healthcare is because everything is so scripted in healthcare. Um, the way pharmaceutical companies look at like scripted versus unscripted, I mean, is more through the lens of branded versus unbranded. There are a lot of challenges that pharmaceutical companies have with messaging, with regulatory, with legal guidelines that they have to follow. And it's an extremely risk averse world, which is why scripted wins out 9 times out of 10. Also, most pharma companies are sales driven organizations, and sales driven organizations love to sell product. So I find that unscripted works really well in healthcare because most of healthcare is heavily scripted. So I think it's really about you know getting a sense for what's going on in the landscape of this that's relevant to your story and making a call on what you think would work better based on your experience. There's another question in here. When will my trailer be up on YouTube? Great question. My we've been toying with the role YouTube would play within our level creating awareness for the film. We're openly exploring it, but it's not currently on the radar. We have a Facebook page, Still Honeyman. We have an Instagram account, Still Honeyman, where we've been doing a lot of our paid performance marketing. And then the trailer exists on our website. We'll look into putting it on YouTube. Good question. Can I elaborate on leaning into tension? Yeah, great question. So I think in a lot of scripted stories, tension is like left off the table. Tension is no one likes to talk about the challenges or the setbacks or the problems that exist. A lot of storytelling is linear. Um, Patient has condition, patient finds product through doctor, doctor says they'd be a good candidate for product. There's no problem with onboarding on that product. There's no problem with adherence on that product. Now the patient's problem is solved on that product. To me, that's a story that's extremely linear and it's not authentic. Real life has setbacks. Real life has challenges. Like even though you may come out better at the end of the day, the path to that may be tough. For example, titration on a medicine or your body adapting to a product or a device that's installed in your head could take some time to adjust to, but you don't see the downside of the that experience, the setbacks or the challenges of that experience, because that's not always believed to be the best to sell product. Um, so I think leaning into tension, it is authentic. It helps create a relatable story that people can connect to. And it keeps your audience guessing, right? It's just not a resolution to the problem. There is a little bit of challenge, a little bit of real life that takes place within that story.
Okay. Any other questions for Alex? So I have a question, Alex. You've got Patina up and going. Can you talk about, for a founder or a co-founder, what they might expect as far as engaging with a professional storyteller to help them get their story out?
Yes, great question. I struggle from this. I think every founder struggles from this. Like when you're on the inside, you have a unique view of the world that is can at times be different than how others view your story. So bringing in an expert or bringing in someone to help you with your storytelling is a way to get an outside opinion and a way to kind of find your blind spots that we tend to have as founders. It makes you have to be vulnerable to let someone in to your founding story, your pitch deck, and you have to have um, the patience for accepting you know, critical feedback that's all done to drive a better story or to produce a certain outcome. So I think it's important to socialize your story and then to think about what story you're trying to tell and what the purpose of that story is. There are certain moments when working with an advertising or strategy or story professional can really pay off in helping you crystallize your story for your audience and your particular use case.
Storytelling is the pause, right? You got to leave room for people.
That's actually one of the classes that we used to teach was all around not overcooking the steak. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Alex, for presenting today, for sharing about the documentary and the film, and let us know when you've got more that we can push out to this group. I know a couple people said they wanted to learn more and see more. Uh, awesome. Thanks,
thank you for
everyone.
having me.
Yeah, it's great. Next week, we've got the demo day being the last Tuesday of the month. So don't miss that. We've got 3 companies presenting for feedback. And we'll also have a couple of people from the startup community kind of giving little commercials, if you will. Um, and then if you are interested, or if you know a founder that would be interested in coming to a demo day to pitch, we've got a spot open in April, the fourth Tuesday in April. So you can connect with Hannah on that. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks.